Welcome to Commerce and Chill. This is the podcast where we talk about the intersection of entrepreneurship, loud items, and relationships. I'm Jessica Johnson Cope.
We need a sound studio.
And I'm the only person in the room who's not laughing right now. But I'm glad that you joined us. And hopefully today we'll provide you with energy and insights to help you jumpstart your business, jumpstart your career, or jumpstart relationship with your significant other. What's up, significant other?
Nothing much. How you doing?
I am fantastic, except I spilled salad dressing on my suit. I'm a little salty.
On your shirt or
on
your
my
pants?
lapel of my jacket.
Oh, I don't see it though.
Okay. You don't.
But
need
my
to see
eyesight
it.
is not the greatest either.
It's okay. You don't need to see it. You don't need to see it. And you don't need to see it. Just know that it's there. But I feel good because I was eating a salad.
That's a good thing.
I'm trying to live a long time. So what are we talking about today, Cope?
Me and talking about living a long time. I want you to live a long time.
I'd like you to live a long time too.
Yes. That way we live a long time together. So living a long time makes me think about this conversation I had with one of the team members today, Mr. Ordonez.
And what was Mr.
And
Ordonez
there's always these running
saying?
conversations we all have, or these topics when we talk about finances. And in those topics of finance, there's always a discussion of credit and cash. So,
is it credit and cash or credit versus cash?
I think it's both. You know, the conversation sometimes is like using credit and using cash, or which one is best, credit or cash. Then today, Mr. Lee threw his 2 cent in, maybe 5 cent. Mr.
Lee is one of our amazing new team members. Shout out to Dylan Lee.
I thought you were going to say W. Lee. I was going to say, who's that? On our talent management team. Yeah, so there's this running discussion, and it comes up every now and then, and the team is kind of like split, like, oh, I don't want no debt. Then the other team members like, yeah, but if you don't have debt, how are you going to buy real estate? And then there's a conversation of good debt versus bad debt. Then the other part is like, well, I'll just pay for it cash. So I'm trying to roll with Mr. Lee, because if he's buying property all cash, like, I'm trying to be with that dude. So I might have to leave this episode a little early so I can go sit next to him, and so I can buy stuff all cash, especially real estate. So he brought that up. So speaking of long time, what's your thoughts on credit in the long term and cash in the long term?
That's a long discussion. So how do we chunk it up to make sure that we get enough content in today's episode and cover enough information so that people feel like we've given them something that they can execute upon, that's actionable?
I'd say, okay, so how do you look at cash versus credit over, let's say, a 5-year period?
Okay, so I had a call earlier today with my ladies investment club, and we joined on our call. We were joined by 2 gentlemen who are part of an organization called iRise, IRISE. And iRise is an investment club for men in the central Ohio area. And they started out pooling their money so that they can make investments. And they've invested in the stock market. And now they've started getting real estate deals and investing in businesses as well. And with my Queens investment group, our goal is to put our money together so that we can grow our net worth, we can grow our wealth. And so it was a very interesting conversation in understanding how this group of men organized their investment group, how they were managing their money, and how they were watching their investment growth. So this is a very timely conversation when we talk about cash and credit. Ultimately, when I think long term, and you said 5 years, I think about leverage. We're going to have to put up some nice
definitions. Your etymology.
Oh,
I remember from the last time.
Yeah, I didn't get to visit etymology.com.
Etymology of leverage.
Actually, but leverage comes from the word for lever, which if you look in science, lever is something that something else is basically balanced upon. So how do you balance your investment choices? How do you balance what you do with your money so that you can sometimes use other people's money to grow your own money? I think that for me is my biggest goal, right? Because I know people both in business and in our personal life who want to work with us and who want to do deals with us. But ultimately, if the deals aren't going to put us in a better position, that is growing our wealth, growing our assets, growing the information that we have, then maybe we need to associate with different people. So it's not, you say it's not cash or credit.
You're going to be cutting people from the business association list?
No, not at all. I'm just saying that if we have to choose the people that we do business with, we choose business partners, business associates, friends, and do business with family members who offer us the greatest opportunity to leverage the money, the economic and financial resources we have, and our information to get greater overall returns for everybody.
Okay, I'm not disagreeing with that. Can't do business with everybody. I learned that the hard way.
And I think with us being in the current economic times, and we've talked about the impact on business, we've kind of talked about how the pandemic has impacted individuals' finances, but we haven't gone into good depth about that. But just think, if you got a stimulus check for $600 that you weren't planning on receiving, what did you do with it? How did you spend that? Did you spend it? Did you invest it? Did you put it in the bank? Did you pay off a bill? What did you do? Chief, talk to me about how you used your stimulus and what advice you would give to the Commerce and Chill community about their stimulus, especially now that they're talking about releasing potentially another round of stimulus to the United States citizens.
I'm trying to think what I did with it.
You paid the bill?
Oh no, I bought stock and made money because the stock was low, and then it went high during COVID, and then I sold and made money. So I turned the stimulus check into more money for us. Some risk. We talked about risk before. Some research, so some work. It's not passive income as we talked about before. And it was leveraged. So we leveraged that money, bought the stock, took a chance, I don't want to say a calculated risk, but it was somewhat calculated because we did the research before buying it or investing in that company. And COVID happened. BLM happened, the stock went up, and I hit the sell button.
So what advice do you have?
Thank you, government.
For the Commerce and Chill community, if they have not yet spent their initial stimulus check,
or they're about to get a second one,
hopefully. If they're about to get a second one.
What they're going to plan to do with it?
Yes.
I look at it this way. When we got it, we weren't planning on getting it. I wasn't anticipating. I wasn't sitting anywhere hoping like, oh, I hope I get stimulus money. So when I got it, or any other money I get that's not planned for, I'm like, oh, I look at it as when you find a penny in the street, when you're like, oh, look, penny, pick it up. I'm like, okay, I found it. It really didn't cost us anything. We didn't really have to put in a whole bunch of sweat equity or whatever to generate that money. And me having this money is not going to affect our lifestyle or our business anyway. Because it's found money. If we want to be straight up, stimulus money is straight found money. If I walked out in the street, I don't know, what's the stimulus check? $800, $900?
$600. Up to $600. Up to $600.
No, $1,200. I think it's $1,200.
It was $1,200.
No, $600 is the unemployment bonus they get.
Federal?
The stimulus was $1,200 each or $600 each?
$1,200. Yeah, okay.
Yeah. Oh.
So
Go figure.
So to me, it's like if I walk out in the street right now and there's $1,200 on the ground, all I did was put in the effort to bend over and pick it up. So what am I going to do with that to make it do more for me? Like how I'm going to put that money to work? That's how I look at it. Because it's not like I had to take $1,200 out my budget and say, okay, Jay, we got to eat ramen noodles for 3 days. We're going to eat peanut butter and jelly for these days because I took $1,200 out of the budget. And this is how by eating this stuff, we're going to recoup the $1,200 and I'm going to do this with it. So how do you do like it? To me, it's somewhat upsetting because it's like you get money. It's free. Like, it's not really free, but you found it. And you could do something with it to turn it into something else. So I get it. Like, some people are going to say, I use it to pay rent or I pay down a credit card. Great. That makes sense. But I'm more talking to the people who are complaining about I don't have money or I don't have resources. And then they get it and then they're like, they trick it. They trick it off. And when I say trick it off, I don't even mean that you purposely say, I'm going to go buy some Yeezys or some J's or I'm going to go buy, a Ferragamo belt or some red bottoms. You legitimately have it and you trick it off because you keep nibbling at it. It's like when you put money in your account and use your debit card, you go eat, you go do this, you go do this, you do this. And before you know, you turn around, you be like, oh, it's only $10, it's only $5, it's only $30, it's only $40. And before you know it, the money is gone because you nibbled it to death. So I'm like, do something with it. Take it. Like, I took the money. You saw me. I took the money and put it in a whole nother account and was like, until I figure out what we're going to do with it, I'm going to put that money there and then use it. And then you looked at the account and was like, where did all that money go? And I had moved it into the trading account that we trade stocks on. So it was not in my regular account that didn't get hit by a debit card or a credit or blah, 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 blah. It went into an account dedicated to do something with it to make it into more. You were going to say something, Jim?
I was just going to tell a story that has nothing to do with cash or credit, but talking about found money, found checks.
Here it comes. Tell it.
Listen, people.
I don't know if I want you to tell it because I don't know what story it is, but go for it.
I'm going to need some of us to get some integrity. That's all I'm going to say. Get some integrity.
This is not going to turn out well.
So a few weeks ago for payday, one of our employees came in to get his check. A short while later, he returned and he said that something terrible had happened. He had misplaced his check. He didn't know where it went, and he asked if he could have a replacement. No problem. Cool in the gang. Put a stop on the original check. Issued him a replacement check. He went about his business and went on his way to work. Shortly thereafter, someone comes to the building, knocks on the door. One of our team members lets him in, and he hands her a note. The note says something to the effect of, I'm looking for Mr. Joe Brown. I have something very valuable belonging to Mr. Joe Brown. For the fee of $60, I will return said valuable item.
So dude brought a ransom note to the office.
To Joe Brown.
Let's be clear, he brought a ransom note to our office.
I've been to Joe Brown's apartment and I know where he lives, and I left the same note.
So he took a ransom note to his house.
And if Mr. Joe Brown has any questions, he can call me at the number below. Then Mystery Man calls shortly thereafter.
Sure enough did.
And when our team member answers the phone, he says, ooh, were you that hot young lady that answered the door when I came by?
To deliver the ransom note?
I just want to let you know I dropped off the note.
I'm about to call, what's that dude, Liam Neeson? In the movie?
Liam Neeson?
Yeah, in the
Ransom?
movie. Ransom or Taken, with his family, he goes after them. I'm going to call him.
So this home skillet
She called him.
found employee Joe Brown's paycheck. He went to his house where Mr. Joe Brown was not, because Mr. Joe Brown had gone to work, and he came to the office with a ransom note to try to hijack $60 to give Mr. Joe Brown his check back, even though the original check had been stopped.
And we already issued him a replacement check.
Yes, and we issued him a replacement check. So I'm just going to say, I don't think any of you would do that, but some folks out here need to get some integrity, because that's just shady. I mean, at the end of the day, sometimes you do find checks in the street, money all over the place.
Just mail it to the address on the check. I don't know. Just throw, I don't know, shred it, throw it away. They lost it, it's gone.
Right. There are easier ways that you can come by money than try to hijack.
Mr. Ransom. That was the best one yet. Written on notebook paper, torn out of a composition book.
Yeah.
It was gangster.
Yeah.
I'm framing that.
Yeah.
That's going in my when I write a book.
Well, long story short, the mystery man did eventually place the original check under employee Joe Brown's door at his apartment.
But that's after the ransom man called here, and we were like, "Oh yeah, he's probably not going to respond to your letter because we already gave him a replacement check. So the check you have is no good." And then he was just like, "Oh, okay." He was totally deflated. Oh,
Great catch.
technical difficulties here. Thank God for editing. Yeah, so he returned the check. It was so it was kind of, that was really sketchy, but it was funny as hell.
It was funny. We do have all kinds of stories here. Yeah. But what about credit? Talk to me about credit, because people always say credit is bad. You know, you go off to college.
What they say is good debt, bad debt.
You go off to college and, you know, freshman campus week. Everybody wants to sign you up to give you a free T-shirt.
They got me. Discover got me back when I was on campus.
You discovered you don't have any money. Right?
I discovered it was a high-ass rate. That's what I discovered. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Discover. But they changed now since back then. Now they got like all this other stuff and pause button and all that. But they be praying. Not praying as in, thank you for this food. I'm talking about praying like
Prey.
A vulture, like, oh, look at the carcass there. Yeah. But I get it.
So there's nothing wrong with having credit and using credit. The thing is, when you have credit and use it, that you use it wisely, that you use it to your benefit, and that you reverse hustle the credit provider. And when I say that, well, I was reading somewhere, if you have a $1 million loan from a bank, you'll love your bank. If you have $100 million loan from your bank will love you. Like, your bank will do whatever it can to get that $100 million back, because it's so much more of an investment.
Right.
And oftentimes people that,
the more you owe them, the more they're willing to work with you, versus if you it's not whatever their threshold is, they don't consider a lot. They'd be like, whatever, foreclose and just take the property and we'll deal with it, even though they really don't want the property. Versus if you got $100 million portfolio of properties, they're gonna be like, hey, how do we restructure this debt, or how do we like renegotiate the terms? It's gonna be a totally different approach.
So I guess my takeaway is, at the end of this episode, what I want you to do is reevaluate how you think about credit, especially business credit. I mean, and a couple of episodes ago, we talked about our business bankers, right? We really like our business bankers because they understand our business and we understand their business of banking. But I'm also reminded of a conversation that I had with a civil rights leader and the leader of a Fortune 50 organization. And the civil rights leader said to us, it's not that minority-owned businesses default on loans more than large corporations. What the difference is that when a large corporation is about to default on a loan, they talk to their investors, they talk to their bankers or lenders, and they say, hey, and the lenders and the bankers will say, what's wrong? Tell us about the situation. Do you need more time? Do you need more money?
How can we work with you?
How can we work with you? And that when it comes to smaller businesses like ours, when it comes to minority-owned businesses, and to some extent when it comes to women-owned businesses, those conversations don't happen. And it seems like businesses like ours are more likely to default, but that's not really the case. It's just we don't know how to leverage and work the network.
So do you think it's more because it's a minority or woman-owned business, or is it because of the size of the business and the amount of revenue?
I would say it's neither. I would say it's about access and exposure, and the fact that you know that you can go to the bank and tell them, I'm not going to pay you this month.
What can we do? I mean, look at the big companies now. How many companies have filed for bankruptcy during the whole the pandemic?
Right.
Brooks Brothers, J. Crew, bunch of other ones, like some names, like they're big brands, like that you just, I just say big businesses that you might not know as an everyday brand. I saw a whole list.
24-hour fitness.
24-hour
24-hour
fitness.
fitness.
Couple other ones. I just saw a list. JCPenney. They were kind of already like
they were
on the fringe anyway. But the thing is, they have access to something that small businesses won't. That they just don't because of their size and scope. Because they will file for bankruptcy. Their the CEO's personal credit ain't getting jacked.
Right.
The CFO's credit ain't going to get messed up. They'll file for bankruptcy. Whoever their vendors are that they're in debt to, or let's just say they're debtors, they're going to get stuck. Some of them may get pennies on a dollar, a few cents on a dollar for what they're owed, and some might get nothing. And then they'll go restructure, open up a new corporation doing business as Brooks Brothers or J. Crew or whoever. Because they're not going to let that business just go. They're just like, how do we restructure this under bankruptcy, get rid of all that debt, and hit the reset button? Like, bro, if I could hit the reset button, like when they're like, oh, things are getting a little tough. You know how much, like, there'll be a lot of small businesses that just be like, not even small businesses. Like, how do you really sit there and say, like, I'm gonna do whatever it takes to make it work? Because in the back of your mind, I can always go to plan Z and hit this reset thing, and then I'll come out of it with almost a good amount of what I have now, and then I get to erase a lot of that. I get to erase a lot of the debt, if not all of it, and then I start fresh. I'm like, yeah, I just got a fresh, brand new start. That's not an option. I mean, you could file for bankruptcy. And what is that thing we saw in the news where some dude started a service for people during COVID that they could file for bankruptcy really easy? I want to say like he had an app or a website, and like the news reporter was talking about it like you buy a hot dog off the street. He's just like, oh, yeah, you go to him and he'll help you file for bankruptcy. He was just like, yeah, we do it. It's an option. But they never talked about what the downsides, what the negative part of it is for an individual or small business owner. Because 9 out of 10 small business owners, they on the hook personally for what's going on. I'm willing to bet the CEO, the CFO, the COO, whoever at these large companies filing bankruptcy, none of them had to personally sign for the lease in any of the real estate they in. None of them. When they took that job as CEO, they didn't say, whoa, I need you to sign this here. You need to personally guarantee the lease for our flagship store.
Right.
Hell no. But the business in your neighborhood that you should be giving a shout out on your social media, they had to personally sign for that lease. They didn't sign it. Well, not all of them, but some of them are savvy and they sign in the corporation's name. But some of the landlords will ask them to be a personal guarantor, or they can't get the lease.
Well, I'll say this. We've talked about the SBA's PPP program. We've also talked about EIDL.
PPP.
We've also talked
Second
about
round.
EIDL. But understand that the U.S. Small Business Administration has several other programs with financial resources. They have several low interest loan programs available. And when you think about credit, think of it as buying money. You can either buy it on the cheap or you can buy it on the expensive. You were just watching, what was that on Netflix? The Business of Drugs? What was that you were watching?
Yo, yes.
Okay, that's a whole nother episode in and of itself, right? But they talked about the pricing model for different narcotics.
And how some narcotics, the prices haven't changed of it in like 30, 40 years because of supply, demand, and the way they structure it. The price has stayed steady for like 30 years. The whole you want your business to, like, depending on what type of business, the size of your business and what you're doing, if you really want to take your small or medium-sized business to the next level, you really need to understand the dynamics of supply and demand in the drug business. And I'm not saying go be a drug dealer.
Not at all.
I'm just saying understand
Don't even do drugs.
The business principles and the mechanics in it. It's, if you break it down and you really look at it and understand it, it's crazy. Why does a drug dealer give away free product?
To get them hooked.
Because he's confident in his product to give them a sample, and then you come back and buy. They get, they're like, oh, it's good.
Why the lifetime value of a customer is usually
their margins are very high. But why does Costco's give those free? They have those tables with the little food samples on it, or BJ's, or whoever, wherever you go to these warehouses, because it pays for them to have someone there to give you these samples, and then you're like, oh wow, it's nice. But if you really understand those clubs, the money is not in the merchandise. The money is not getting you to buy the samples. The money is becoming a member. So that's a whole nother topic. But the drug thing.
So just understanding, if you understand the business model behind selling drugs and the cost of the product, you can better understand business principles and mechanics as it applies to credit. You are buying money. You can either buy low or you can buy high. They talk about your personal credit score will help you buy at even lower costs. If there's more money available and you know the right people, you can get the money for cheap. So realize
PPP, what's the interest rate on the PPP money if you don't get it forgiven?
I want to say it's 0.98%. So let's say 1%.
1%. Let me tell you something. PPP money at 1%, even if you don't get it forgiven, depending on your business, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm speaking personally, I would take it. They say, oh, you get 10,000, 5,000, a million, 100,000, whatever. I'd be like, give it to me. Even if I wasn't sure what I'm going to do with it or there was an exact need, the money is so cheap. I would take, because if you have to pay it back over, what is it, maybe 5 years or something like that? I don't know.
I think so. I can't.
But it keeps changing. But even if you had to pay, let's just say you got 20, let's make it, a number that probably fall within some small businesses because it's 2.5 times your monthly average payroll.
Yes.
They calculate it. So let's just say, argumentally, you got, let's say 50 grand. And you had to pay that back over
3 years, I think it is.
All right, let's say 3 years. Let's say 5 maybe because they're making all these changes. So let's say 5 years at 1%. I have no idea what the math is on that, but it's got to be really freaking cheap. I'd be like, okay, I take it. Even if I sat on it just in case, or I wanted to say I'm going to use this to grow my business and do this and be, I got this plan and do something strategically. Or if I just sat on it and said, I'm going to use it to float some invoices or float the money that I need to get inventory. And then when my clients pay, I put the money back. And then when they give me the bill for it, I'd be like, you know what? I'm just going to pay the whole thing off. Just take all the money and pay it right back. 1%? Can I get that minutia?
So that's the thing. If you didn't apply for PPP and you do own a business, look at some of the other SBA lending programs because the money is cheap. And talk to your local SBA representative as well as your local business banker that uses the SBA products, loan products, and see how much you qualify for, what you can get that money, buy that money while it's cheap, and reinvest in yourself and in your business because these rates, I don't know what's going to happen in the marketplace, but it's safe to say that
it's going to go down.
I'm not going to say it's going to go down. I will dare say that by October, November, December, the banks and the lenders will have a very different profile of to whom they give money and
they have
what
to
terms.
Give it because they don't make money if they don't give money.
But if they also can't give money at negative interest rates, and that's almost what we're at the brink.
Right, but that's what the Fed's doing. But I'm talking about a regular commercial bank that that most people are dealing with on their personal side or on their business side. They're not giving negative rates, but they got to loan money to make money because they make money off numerous things. But one thing is they loan you money for a car, a business loan, a house, or what have you. You pay them back an interest rate. So if they stop loaning out money, how's that going to affect their bottom line when it comes to their revenue? And let's remember, they're not running the same model as regular business owners. They're running a model that panders to the shareholders, short-term economics, the quarter, what's the earnings call. Mm-hmm. And speaking of which, a couple of them were coming out this week. I got to check out stocks. But they're pandering to the board, to the shareholders, because they want to see profits. Because they're investing their money and they want a return on their profits. And a lot of time on their investment, a lot of time is short term. They're not looking 5 years, 8 years, 10 years. Because they're like, I want to get it in and get it back out.
So in your conversation with the content team about cash and or credit, did you drill down into these type of details with them or?
It was the whole gamut. So some of it was student loan. Mm-hmm. So, there was conversation where, hey, team members going back to school. Do I get a grant? I really don't want to take out a student loan. Then there's other team members. We had a discussion like, yeah, I had student loans or I still got a student loan. and looking at the positives and the negatives part of it. So, you talk about credit versus cash. If you have the cash and you use it to pay off something, in whole or a large portion of it, and then you have no more cash left. So it becomes like, what do I use the credit and then hold on to the cash? But then if I have too much of a debt, it screws up my debt to income ratio, then it messes with my credit score. So it's always this tricky balance.
Right. But a lot of people focus on credit score, right? And there's a certain level of person that is not all that concerned about their credit score.
Oh, I'm quite sure. But I wonder what that person who doesn't care about their credit score, what their balance sheet looks like.
That's a great question.
And it's probably like a lot of zeros on it.
Probably, but maybe not. But it's a very different mindset to make decisions based on your credit score as opposed to making decisions on what makes the best business sense.
And it goes back to what you talked about earlier, whether it's just short term or long term. Because there's some things I did in the past where I was like, oh, I know it's going to mess up my credit. Mm-hmm. But I was taking a risk, a gamble to say, if I do this, it's going to impact my credit negatively. But if this pays off, it puts me in a position later on to be like, oh, I'll pay that debt off, or I'll do whatever, which will slowly bring my credit back up. But because I took that chance, it allowed me to either, turn a good sized profit or acquire a piece of property or whatever. But there was a negative and there's a positive to it. So I guess it really boils down to how the person is looking at something in terms of time, short term versus medium versus long term.
Well, I wouldn't just say look at your credit score in terms of time, but keep in mind that your credit score is tied to several different things. Like your insurance costs are tied to your credit score. If you have a mortgage or any kind of loans, those are typically tied to your credit score. And sometimes your job opportunities may be tied to your credit score. So I'm not saying that you completely tank your credit score, but don't make your credit score the starting and finishing point in making decisions about how you invest in yourself and your business, whether or not you use cash or credit or both, and making a plan to move forward using other people's money. I'll tell this one last story. One of my mentors and very dear friends about 10 years ago asked me what I thought about getting a business loan to grow the business. And I said, oh, no. My daddy always told me don't owe anybody anything. Like my dad paid his credit card bill off on time every month, and just collected the points. Like he bought stuff with his credit card just so he could get the points.
And paid it off.
And paid it
before
off.
Before the date, so it doesn't accumulate the interest or whatever.
Exactly. I mean, I guess that's wise, right? That's what we all should do. We shouldn't buy anything that we can't pay for.
To get the points.
Anyway, so I told my mentor friend, I was like, my dad said never owe anything. So she said, but what if you could use other people's money to grow your business? What if you could use other people's money to touch the community and make the impact that you want to make? Wouldn't that make a lot more sense than trying to finance it yourself? And a light bulb went off.
It allows you to grow faster. You can grow your business organically, but if you get, I don't want to say a cash injection, because then people start talking about raising money and bringing in investors. But if you go borrow, the money and the light bulb comes on.
All right. So the result of that conversation was not that I went out and I got a loan, but that I thought differently about financing my business, about how to use my cash on hand versus how I use credit, about how to prepare myself in the business for being bankable. And those are conversations that we don't have as a community often enough. And when I was ready to go out and get a loan from a bank, I had the right mindset, I had the right paperwork, and everything came together. But had I not had that conversation, I could have had very different outcomes. So I challenge you to think about business credit differently. I challenge you to talk to wise people who work in banking or whom have successfully received business loans and paid them off, and see what that might look like for your business so that you can have as many options as possible so you can operate successfully. And again, I challenge you to look at the SBA's current programs and think about how you can buy cheap money so that you can better navigate the challenges that are going to come as we continue to navigate through the COVID crisis.
That's it. Cheap money.
Cheap money.
Use cheap money and use credit.
It's not cash versus credit. It's cash and credit. And make sure you understand the business principles and mechanics that make it work. Understand the market drivers. Leverage other people's money. And if you haven't already used your stimulus check, or if you get a second stimulus check, or you're waiting this upcoming round of stimulus, put some of that money to work for you. Invest in yourself. Let it make you more money. Chief, is there anything that you said that I forgot to summarize?
Nope, you summarized it all. I'm saying, and in the comments, when the second round of stimulus checks goes out, I want to know how you're going to use your stimulus check to invest. How are you going to invest your stimulus check to make it work for you, to make you more money? That's all I want to know. In the comments below. Hit the bell, subscribe, tell your friends, share it. I want to hear everybody's plan.
And on that note, this concludes today's episode of Commerce and Chill. Thanks for stopping by. I am Jessica Johnson Cope.
I'm Waleed.
We'll see you soon.